at your hands. Yes, those very hands you use every day. Think for a moment about the things they have done, the work they have accomplished, the caresses they have given. And now, close your eyes for a moment. Breathe deeply and feel the air entering your lungs, filling you with life. It is a simple act, isn't it? Yet it's a gift, a constant reminder of the breath of life that sustains you, that keeps you here now. Don't rush, let that peace settle in, that quiet awareness of your being here in this moment. I am here with you as well, and together we allow the quiet to speak. Do you remember that time you were a child, maybe playing in the garden, or perhaps lost in a book, completely absorbed? The world around you seemed to fade away, and there was only that moment, that joy, that wonder. Or maybe you recall a conversation with a dear friend, a heart-to-heart talk where the words flowed freely, and you felt truly understood. There was a connection, a communion, a sense of being completely present. That feeling, that experience of deep connection, is what I want us to explore today, but with a different interlocutor, one who is always there, always listening, always loving. I recall a scene from the Gospel, a moment when Jesus was praying. He had withdrawn to a solitary place, away from the crowds, and there, in the quiet of the night, he spoke with his Father. It wasn't a formal prayer, not a recitation of memorized words, but a heartfelt conversation between a son and his Father. He poured out his soul, his joys, his sorrows, his hopes. He sought guidance, strength, and above all, communion with the one he loved. And it was in that quiet dialogue that he found the strength to carry out the mission entrusted to him. We often think of prayer as a duty, a list of things we need to say, or a set of petitions we need to present. We might feel the pressure to use the right words, to follow a specific formula, and we forget that at its heart, prayer is a conversation, a dialogue initiated by God himself. It's not about us reaching out to him, trying to get his attention. It is he who is constantly reaching out to us, desiring to share his life with us, to enter into a communion of love. Think about it. God, the creator of the universe, the one who holds the stars in place and knows every hair on your head, longs to speak with you, to hear your voice. He doesn't need your words. He knows your thoughts even before you think them. He sees the desires of your heart, but he wants to hear them from your own lips. He wants to share in your joys and sorrows, your hopes and fears. He wants you to open your heart to him, to be vulnerable with him, to share all that makes you who you are. It reminds me of a beautiful passage from St. Augustine, where he says, "You have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our hearts are restless until they rest in you." Isn't that a profound truth? We spend so much time searching for happiness, for fulfillment, in things that are fleeting, in relationships that are imperfect, in achievements that are ultimately empty. But the true source of our happiness, the place where we find true peace, is in our relationship with God. And prayer, that intimate dialogue with him, is the path that leads us to that union. Sometimes we might feel that God is silent, that he doesn't hear our prayers, or that he's distant. Perhaps we have prayed for something specific and it hasn't come to pass. Or maybe we feel lost and confused and we can't seem to find our way. We might even wonder if he is truly there, if he really cares. It's in those moments that we must remember that God's silence is not an absence, but an invitation. It's an invitation to seek him with greater intensity, to go deeper into our hearts, to listen more attentively to his voice. Think of a close friend, someone you trust implicitly. When you are in their presence, you don't need to constantly fill the silence with words. Sometimes just being together, sharing a quiet moment, is enough. You feel understood, loved, and accepted. It's the same with God. He delights in our presence, even when we have nothing to say. He wants us to simply be with Him, to rest in His love, to allow His peace to fill our hearts. The Catechism of the Catholic Church tells us that prayer is the raising of one's mind and heart to God, or the requesting of good things from God. It's not just about reciting prayers or asking for things, but about raising our minds and hearts to Him. It's about turning our attention towards Him, about letting go of our anxieties and fears, and placing our trust in His loving care. It's about allowing ourselves to be seen by Him, to be known by Him, to be loved by Him. Perhaps you are struggling with a particular sin, a weakness that keeps pulling you away from God. Maybe you feel ashamed, unworthy of His love, and you find it difficult to approach Him in prayer. But remember, He knows you better than you know yourself, and He loves you despite your imperfections. He is not waiting for you to be perfect before He welcomes you into His embrace. He is waiting for you to turn to Him, to acknowledge your need for Him, to allow Him to heal your wounds. Don't be afraid to be honest with Him. Don't try to hide your flaws or your struggles. He already knows them. He longs for you to be vulnerable with Him, to share your deepest fears and your greatest joys. He wants you to come to Him as you are, with all your baggage, with all your imperfections, and to allow Him to transform you, to make you a new creation in Him. Perhaps you feel that you don't know how to pray, that your words are inadequate, that your thoughts are scattered. Don't worry, God doesn't need eloquent words or perfect phrases. He listens to the language of the heart, to the unspoken desires that reside within you. He understands the groaning of your soul, the longings that you can't even put into words. The important thing is to turn to Him, to open your heart to Him, to allow Him to speak to you. Think of a mother with her newborn child. She doesn't need the child to speak perfect sentences for her to understand its needs. She knows its cries, its gestures, its every little movement, and she responds with love, with tenderness, with complete dedication. It's the same with God. He understands our needs, even when we can't articulate them. He knows the desires of our hearts, and He responds with His infinite love. St. Teresa of Avila, that great teacher of prayer, said that prayer is nothing else than being on terms of friendship with God. What a wonderful definition. It's not about obligation or duty, but about friendship, a deep and loving relationship with our Creator. And like any friendship, it requires time, attention, and a willingness to listen. It requires us to be present, to be open, to be vulnerable. Perhaps your life feels hectic, filled with work, obligations, and distractions. You might find it difficult to find time for prayer, to create that quiet space where you can connect with God. But remember that prayer is not just something we do, it's something we are. It's a way of living, a way of seeing the world with God's eyes. It's about finding Him in the ordinary moments of our day, in the faces of the people we meet, in the beauty of the world around us. It might be as simple as offering up a moment of gratitude while you're walking to work, or a brief prayer for a friend who's going through a difficult time. It might be taking a few minutes before bed to thank God for the day's blessings, or to ask for His guidance in the hours ahead. It's about turning your heart towards Him throughout the day, about remembering that He is always present, always loving, always waiting for you. And then there are those times when we need to withdraw to find a quiet place where we can focus solely on Him. It might be in a church or in your own room, or even just in a quiet corner of your home. It's about creating that space where you can be alone with Him, where you can listen to His voice, where you can pour out your heart to Him. It's about allowing Him to speak to you, to guide you, to fill you with His peace. It's not about the quantity of time, but the quality of our presence. It's not about the number of prayers we say, but the sincerity of our hearts. It's about allowing Him to transform us, to make us more like Him, to fill us with His love. And that, my friend, is the true essence of prayer. Let's turn our eyes now to the Blessed Virgin Mary, who is such a beautiful example of prayer. She was always in communion with God, from the moment of her Immaculate Conception to the moment she stood at the foot of the cross. She pondered the events of her life in her heart. She listened to God's voice, and she responded with complete love and obedience. She knew that prayer was not just a duty, but a dialogue of love, a constant communion with her beloved Son. And even now, in her glory, she intercedes for us. She takes our prayers to her Son, and she helps us to grow in our relationship with Him. She is the perfect model of prayer, the one who shows us how to open our hearts to God, to trust in His love, and to allow Him to transform us. Let us ask her to teach us to pray, to listen to God's voice, and to respond with the same love and obedience that she always showed. Ask her to help you understand that prayer is not about you reaching God, but about God reaching you. It's about allowing Him to enter into your life, to fill you with His love, and to transform you into the person He created you to be. Ask her to help you to make time for Him each day, to listen to Him, and to respond with your whole heart. She is our mother, and she will not fail to guide us on this path.